Hi everybody, this is part 2 of the Qor Watercolors. I'm going to swatch first really quick and then I'll go over each color and show you the other colors, swatches and matches that I have. Since it's going to be somewhat long, I'm going to do the actual testing and the test painting in the part 3. The painting came out super cutesy, by the way, no creepy characters. For this one, if you enjoy to see more of a pigment information and how paints look fresh on the paper, stay here. Or if you are not into that thing, come back for the part 3. Here's what the colors look like. A reminder from part 1, most of them are from the set of 24 with the additions of indigo, ultramarine pink, carbon black, Venetian red and cobalt turquoise. Cadmium yellow primrose, series 4, light fastness 1, which is excellent. Single pigment, PY35, not as flowy as some others. This is what it looks like when it's dry. And I have the same color, at least in the pigment information in Holbein, but it looks a lot brighter than Qor. Also, I noticed that it likes a few layers to kind of stay bright. It almost like it sips inside the paper or something, I'm not sure, but most of the swatches I had to go second time and add another layer basically. Nikkel Azo Yellow, series 3, light fastness 1, also a single pigment, PY150, very nice, very warm yellow. This is how our Nikkel Azo Yellow looks like, and the closest one, I couldn't find the same pigment, but the closest one I had Daniel Smith Azo Yellow. It's a little bit more yellow, and this one's a little bit more almost like greenish brownish underneath. Quinacridone Gold, series 3, light fastness 2, two pigments, PO48 and P150, very flowy paint. Here's our Queen Gold when it's dry. And I found a couple that I have. I have one from Holbein. It's a little brighter and it's more yellow, but if I look like in the places where I have more pigment here, it looks very similar and it's the same pigment information. Then there's another one from Sienna, but it has a little bit of a different pigment and it's more like on a brownish side on Sienna. Diarylide Yellow, series 2, light fastness 1, PY83 and HR70, also very flowy and very, very warm yellow. This is what it looks like dry, and I couldn't find anything that looks the same or has the same pigment information, at least in my collection. Transparent Pyrrole Orange, series 2, light fastness 2, single pigment, PO71. Transparent Pyrrole Orange dry. I think I have similar pigments, but they didn't look anything like this color. The only color that I have that's kind of close to this has different pigments, but it's red orange from Sienna, and it's more orangey, and this one's more kind of redder, I think. It's almost like a little bit of vermilion in here. Cadmium Red Medium, series 4, so on the expensive side. Light fastness 1, single pigment, PR108. Here's our Cadmium Red Medium. I'm not a huge fan of this color, so I don't have a lot of those colors in my collection. It all kind of, in this one, it is completely separating everywhere. Even if you put it in the mixes, it keeps this texture. So if you compare this to Holbein that has the same pigment information, it's smooth, right? It doesn't do this texture. And this one's a lot brighter, I think, and redder. The other one that I have is from Untitled Blue. This one looks very similar, at least. Permanent Scarlet, Series 3, Light Fastness 1, Single Pigment, PR 168. Not as flowy as some others. Here's our Permanent Scarlet Dry. I couldn't find anything color-wise that was close to this. But this one, it's different pigment information. This was the closest that I have. It's still a little warmer, the vermilion that I have, and this one's kind of pale. Permanent Alizarin Crimson, Series 3, Light Fastness 2, Single Pigment, PR 177. This one is very flowy and very granulating. This is our Permanent Alizarin Crimson when dry. Color-wise, I thought Daniel Smith's Alizarin Crimson was the closest. It's a little bit brighter in Daniel Smith's. The pigment information is different. I have one that has close pigment information, I don't know, 177, 176. But this one's more kind of a pinker, although it was pretty close color-wise. I think this one's closest. Quinacridone Magenta, Series 3, Light Fastness 1, Single Pigment, PR 122. Also very flowy paint, very cool pink color. Queen Magenta Dry. And I actually like this one better than the one from Holbein. It's just so bright. I guess you can definitely cut it with water and make it not as saturated. But color-wise, it's pretty similar. I think this is a little bit more on a cooler side than this guy. Same pigment. Ultramarine Pink, Series 3, Light Fastness 1, Single Pigment, PV15, very flowy, very granulating. Unfortunately, it's pretty weak. In mixes, it gets swallowed very quickly, so you need a lot of this color with any other pigment. Ultramarine Pink, I don't have this in any other brands, basically. This is not love at first sight kind of a color. I thought it was very, very weak, but I'll show you later. It creates the most beautiful mixes for the skin tones really, really fast. So we'll see if this texture is going to go through, because a lot of the times it does, and I don't want to see that on the faces, basically. I'd rather have it smooth. But maybe if it doesn't keep this texture, then it's definitely going to work more for the mixes for the skin tones for me. Dioxis in Purple, Series 3, Light Fastness 1, PV23. Very flowy, very saturated. Here's our Dioxis in Purple. It's not very exciting. It looks like most of the purples. So I have one from Untitled Blue. It's pretty, it's the same pigment, very, very similar. It's a little bit warmer. And I have the Mission Gold. It's called Bright Clear Violet. Different pigments, but also very, very similar. I guess these guys are more similar and warmer than this guy is a little bit cooler. There's just, I think there's more like red in here. And this just has more of a blue undertone. Ultramarine Blue, Series 2, Light Fastness 1, PB29. Very flowy, very granulating, and very saturated. Here's our Ultramarine Blue. Again, lots and lots of texture on this guy. It looks similar to my other ultramarines, and It is more saturated than the rest of the ones that I have. Is the Holbein, and they're all the same pigment information. I'm trying to show you like the tail of it, where it doesn't have as much. I mean, color-wise, yes, it is very, very similar, and it's very, very bright. Cerulean Blue, Series 3, Light Fastness 1, PB36-1. Here's our Cerulean. It's pretty pale like the most of them. It does have this texture where it's hard to get it on a brush and saturate, but this color creates really interesting mixes. I'll show you later. And I don't have the same one and the same pigment, but it's very similar from Holbein, slightly lighter than this guy, maybe a little bit warmer. Tallow Blue Green Shade, Series 1, Light Fastness 2, PB15-3. More flowy, more saturated, lovely bright blue. Tallow Blue Green Shade. I have a few that are very similar. I have one from Sennelier, Mission Gold, and Memory Blue. That's called a cyan. But they're all the same pigments, and they look similar. I think saturation-wise, probably closer to Memory Blue. Indigo, Series 1, Light Fastness 2, 3 pigments, PB15-3, PBK7, and PB19. Super flowy, very pretty dark blue, although not very saturated. Here's our indigo. It's not green like on the tube. And it's very similar to this guy from Sennelier, like very, very, very similar. It's like maybe slightly bluer, and Holbein's, it's just so saturated, it's hard to say, but it looks similar, maybe slightly bluer. And the pigments are slightly different too. Cobalt Teal, Series 4, Light Fastness 1, PG50. This one doesn't flow as much, granulating color. This is our Cobalt Teal. I thought it was a little bit weak when I was using this in mixes. It's slightly greener than Sennelier's, just a little bit. I also have one from Amgram, but it's just so saturated, it's almost hard to say. Again, I think it's just more green here on the core side. Cobalt Turquoise, Series 4, Light Fastness 1, PB36. Does not flow as much, granulating color. Here's the Cobalt Turquoise. This texture was showing through everywhere, in every single mix, I think. And it's kind of a funky color, I think, because so this one is more green for sure. Cobalt Turquoise from Holbein does have different pigment. It's completely different. Completely, it's not even it's blue and green. There's another similar color, it wasn't as textury, that has the same pigment, at least, from Sennelier, Cobalt Green. So this one does look more like Cobalt Green to me on core. Viridian Green, Series 3, Light Fastness 1, PG18. Does not flow as much. Here's our Viridian Dry. It's very similar to any of the Viridians that I've seen from the professional lines. I have one from Holbein. It's as weak right, as this guy, and this guy has probably 2 or 3 layers on top of it. But yeah, it looks interesting and nice in a lot of the mixes, but it is weak. Just not like the pigment is just, there's not a lot of pigment. I don't know. I don't know why it's so hard to get any saturation on the paper. Sap Green, Series 2, Light Fastness 1, PG36, PR101, and PY150. Sap Green, I thought that was really, really nice. It's very, very transparent. Looks similar to Sennelier's as far as the color and the transparency goes. Also, Amgram, pretty close to this guy. This one's a little bit more saturated. Green Gold, Series 3, Light Fastness 2, PY129, very flowy. Here's our Green Gold. I don't think I have, actually I have the same pigment from Sennelier, Gold Brown Green, but it's more yellow. This one has kind of a more green, I think, that's popping through. And it looks more like this Mission Gold, I think, even though this one has different pigments. But just color-wise, I think just this one has enough green in it to be more of a match. Raw Sienna, Series 1, Light Fastness 1, PY43. Raw Sienna, also pretty weak from the mixes. Similar to Holbein, this one's maybe a little bit warmer on the Holbein, and Daniel Smith look completely different. It's kind of a more reddish on the Raw Sienna. Burnt Sienna, Series 1, Light Fastness 1, PBR7. Not as much flow either. Here's our Burnt Sienna. This one was nice. I like this color. It's kind of it's a little bit different also from other colors that I have. Even though the same pigment information from Holbein, see how it's more kind of almost brownish reddish, and this one more golden. And then Mission Gold is even more golden. So not really, couldn't really find a match. And I'm not sure what happened to my Sennelier, because I know that I have Burnt Sienna in Sennelier. Venetian Red, Series 1, Light Fastness 1, PR101, very flowy, smooth, no matches in my collection. It looks very pretty in mixes. Van Dyke Brown, Series 2, Light Fastness 1, PR101, not as flowy. Van Dyke Brown. Let me show you how different it is. Here's the same one, different pigment, a little bit, from Sennelier. It looks absolutely like a completely different color. And here's another one that's different pigment. It's just gold brown. It's like my Mary Blue didn't really go crazy with the names. But this, it's more of a match to this guy. Raw Umber, Series 1, Light Fastness 1, PBR7, super flowy. Here's another really strange one, Raw Umber. So if I go look at, for example, Holbein, looks completely different. Not even, same pigment. And here is Mission Gold. Again, this is just more warm brown, and this is like almost grayish brown. Payne's Gray, Series 1, Light Fastness 2, PB15, 3, PBK7, PV19. Very flowy. Here's the Payne's Gray. This one wasn't very exciting. It's similar to other Payne's grains like Holbein looks. Maybe slightly cooler. Here's the Sennelier. I think still pretty similar Very similar. This one's a little bit different. Neutral Tint, Series 1, Light Fastness 2, PY42, PR122, PB15 3. I think it flows really nice, but because it's so weak, it's hard to see. Here's another odd one. Neutral Tint. I keep calling it, I have the, where's my, I have the cool tint and the warm tint. It's not a neutral tint. Here's the neutral tint from Holbein, for example. I don't think I have any other ones. Maybe I have somewhere from Sienna. I couldn't find it. But completely different. Look how warm it is. How is that neutral? I think this one's also not neutral. This is very cool. It looks almost like the other Payne's gray than neutral. But interesting. It's very, very weak. So you can, it's actually not a bad color, I thought. You can use it fairly, you know, like you can load this on a brush and mix it in with your other pigment and it's not gonna kill it. Like a lot of the times you just darker color, you put it in and it's, whoops, too much. This one is, it's like perfect for tinting. Carbon Black, Series 1, Light Fastness 1, PBK 7. Very flowy, but unfortunately pretty weak. When I use black, I really need it for black. This is not very black. It also didn't play well with mixes, so I didn't even include it. I'm going to reorganize my swatches with the addition of the new colors from Qor. I like to have color dedicated pages of my swatches so it's easier for me to find the color. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, love to all, and have a great day.